Beloved Freemelons, thank you so much for joining me once again. I am Eli Martyr. One thing I have to mention before we get going, you'll have to excuse my face. As many of you know, I do work in film. I'm a stuntman and actor. And just yesterday, I was involved in a stunt that didn't go according to plan, and I ended up landing smack on my face on concrete from a wire gag that was sending me through the air. So I landed on my face, much to my surprise. And it left me with a fat lip and, a scratched up nose. I was really worried. I thought my teeth were gone. And I got up and am I okay? Is everything here? It really sucked because I knew I had an interview to conduct today. Anyway, that's why I'm a little bruised up. No, I did not get into a fight with a gorilla or a giraffe. Just a bad accident at work. So anyway, today I have the pleasure of conducting the first interview on this channel. And one of the things that I want to do is interviewing exceptional, notable other individuals who are using their knowledge and wisdom of health, wellness, natural law, natural science, and are implementing it in their lives so I can share with you their experiences doing many of the things that I try to teach on this channel. And if you're a fan of this channel, you know that my approach is very simple, but very uncommon. And I can definitely tell you that in my personal experience and in my life with the people that I normally see every day, there's nobody doing what I'm doing, right? However, there are Facebook communities and other health groups where I do get to interact with people who are on the same type of path that I am. And one of those exceptional individuals goes by the name of Bret Cohen, and I reached out to him to ask him if he'd like to be interviewed to give his experience of what life is like as a fruitarian, or at least primarily fruitarian. Anyone who speaks to Bret Cohen about matters of health and wellness will instantly be impressed by his extensive knowledge on the natural laws of health, the natural laws of vitality. He's got it very, very well figured out. He has been on the health conscious journey for 20 years at least, and has been a raw food fruitarian, or primarily raw food fruitarian, for 12 years. Very healthy individual. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to you Mr. Bret Cohen. We had some issues with our Wi-Fi connection, so I couldn't get his video, but I did manage to get all of his audio for you. So it's with great pleasure and honor that I get to interview Mr. Bret Cohen for you guys here today on the Freemelon Society. Thank you so much for coming and, agreeing to this interview. And it was really important because I put out all these videos and lectures, and in my life, in my personal experience, I just don't know too many other people that are on the same wavelength, that are doing the same types of things dietarily and lifestyle wise. And so when I met you, it was just nice to see and know someone else that was on a similar page. So there aren't too many of us in the world right now. I mean, I imagine that'll change over time, but it's nice to know someone that's that's got similar interests. But
Agreed.
Yeah.
The feeling is mutual.
And thank you. And so just wanted to share with my audience your experiences doing the same types of things that I talk about on my channel. Let's say, on a day where you're not fasting, what would be just a general gist of some of the things that you could or would eat? Maybe not necessarily that you are currently doing, but just like something that you would do under a normal situation.
Sure. I've always lived in the city for pretty much my entire life.
Right.
I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I now live in Brooklyn, New York. And there's a steady supply of fruit here, of generally pretty low quality.
Right.
I just find whatever fruit that is most attractive to me.
Right.
Most of the time I'm aiming for a short window.
Yeah.
So I'm aiming for 4 hours or less of eating time, and then I'll just be fasting
for the rest of the day.
The other 20 hours of the day.
Which to a lot of people is already pretty extreme, but from where you and I are coming from, I imagine for you it feels pretty natural to do something like that, right? To eat only in 4 hours during the day, and then the rest of the time you're not eating anything.
Most of the time. If I have an approach to teach music and yoga.
Yeah. Cool.
And my approach is one of a moderate amount of force. You don't push too hard.
I see.
So if I I really, really want to eat more, I might eat longer. The eating window might get stretched to 6 or even 8 hours some days. I just keep on working on myself as time goes on.
Yeah.
Working on, healing from the damage that has been passed down to me as through the generations, like most of us.
Like all of us. Yeah, no different than myself or, most anyone I can think of. Yeah. As for vegetables, do you do vegetables as well? Not too many, mostly just fruits?
Basically, I prefer to eat only fruit, but I don't force it. I occasionally will eat other foods. The most I've been able to accomplish so far in life of eating 100% fruit is 5 months.
Awesome.
And that was amazing. Should I be able to gather up the courage to move to the tropics, it would be a lot easier to accomplish 100% fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely would be easier. I mean, we are a tropical species, so, that we have migrated, away from the tropics is kind of out of our control, but that doesn't really change what we are as human beings. So going back to our roots and heading to the tropics would make a fruitarian lifestyle, yes, admittedly, a lot easier.
There's a really good study that I recommend to anyone that's interested, called Pottinger's Cat. Pottinger's Cat is spelled Pottinger, cat. Study that was done a while ago, maybe 80 years ago. It can easily be found online with a search. And basically, there's a guy named Pottinger, and he took a population of cats, 3 different populations of cats, gave them controlled diet. One population got a 100% raw diet, raw meat, raw milk, and, cat-type foods like that.
Right.
Another population was given, I think it was 2/3 of that same diet, and then 1/3 of some cooked ingredients. The third population was also given 2/3 of the raw and 1/3 the cooked ingredients, but there was also some sweetened condensed milk and a couple even more crap foods that were put in there.
Right, of course.
But each population was kept on their diet once they were placed on it for the rest of their life, and they made observations based on that. They found that after a little while of the cooked food diet, the cooked food cat were showing very, very obvious effects, very, very obvious health differences from the raw food animals. They were lethargic, and they had a lot of issues come up. And a lot of people might expect that are people that are listening to your program might expect that. But what's interesting is they actually carried this study into multiple generations.
I see.
And observed the multiple generations.
Yeah.
And there was a very, very significant passing down of some of these traits.
I see.
So the cooked food animals into the second generation were significantly smaller than the raw food animals. They were about 70-80% of the size on average. They were not nearly as well coordinated, which you as a martial artist, I think, might definitely find interesting.
Sure, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that sort of thing. The third generation cats, a lot of them, males were appearing more like females and vice versa.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of them were unable to reproduce after the third generation.
Yeah.
In no uncertain terms, they talked about how this sort of thing passed down through the generation.
Right.
It has very strong implications for humans as well. They also tested reversing studies. So they took the cooked food animals and put them on a raw food diet.
Okay, yeah.
And they said they weren't able to return them back to their initial state, but it took 4 generations.
Right.
4 generations of eating a 100% raw food.
Which kind of really has a way of cutting out our work as people, because that is exactly what's happened to us as human beings. We've had generations upon generations of eating everything that is not human food, right? Everything that is not suited to our, to our physiology, to our biological makeups. And as a result, we've come with these genetic problems, these genetic defects that are so normal that we just accept, but really they don't speak at all to the vast potential of the health and wellness of a human being. And that study is actually really good. I'm glad you brought that up, because it just shows you how disadvantaged we are when we start out life, because most of the time our parents, like we mentioned, have been eating badly for generations. And so it's no better time than now to start for not only our own betterment, but for the future generations that are to come after us. You know, we need to be more mindful of what we're eating now, right? Because it's crunch time.
Anyone that's starting to delve into this kind of stuff will cumulatively understand as time goes on just how important it is kind of undertaking.
Yeah, for sure.
Back to your other question?
Yeah, so what I was asking earlier was your background in your own personal life prior to making these lifestyle changes. Was there something in particular that served as an impetus to, you know, to get you to make these lifestyle changes? Was it something that happened personally? If, you know, obviously only answer anything that you're comfortable answering, but, you know, basically what made you change? What was it that happened in your life that got you to see a better way?
Yeah. I just want to say also, feel free to ask me pretty much anything if I don't feel comfortable answering them. I am perfectly comfortable with stating that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Welcome. So basically, growing up, I was raised by two mathematicians. My mother does pure math. Mm-hmm. My father was a physicist.
Okay. Wow.
They're both very accomplished. They work at major universities and done a lot of great things. My father was also a chronic mouth breather and a chronic overworker. He was the number one wrestler in high school, and he was constantly working, constantly thinking very hard. And in addition to the food issues that we're already considering, he became pretty ill. A few years before I was born, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Oh, shoot.
Chronic progressive multiple sclerosis.
Yeah.
Very familiar with that?
Yeah.
I witnessed that.
I see.
Witnessed my father gradually becoming paralyzed.
Oh, man.
Throughout my life, when, you know, he walked on a cane in my earliest memories.
Yeah.
Then he was in a wheelchair.
Right.
And then he was bedridden. That was very difficult for my family. When I was 14, he had been getting pneumonia more and more commonly and going into the hospital. And one of those times, my mother said, okay, well, you have to go to a nursing home because I can't take it anymore.
I see.
So he went into a nursing home where he lived for another 10 years. He chose to be given the full amount of life support and life extension possible. Mm-hmm. He lived for, as I said, another 10 years. When he died, I was 24.
Yeah.
That was almost 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. And
I imagine, you know, witnessing something like that, you know, driving home pretty forcefully, motivation to avoid something like that in your own life and for your own, you know, family, you know. So yeah, I can see that as a pretty powerful motivator to, you know, to be health conscious. Yeah.
And, you know, I just, from my perspective, there was this very corrupt industry that was sort of preying on him.
Oh yeah.
Like a parasite.
Oh yeah.
Which generally called the healthcare industry, testing out different things that were supposed to help him that I later come to understand were mostly actually causing his issues more than anything else.
Yeah.
And also taking his money. It is a different fancy name.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing going on. People their bodies are overwhelmed with too much stress in all forms through our food.
Yeah.
And eventually some link in the chain develops a problem.
Exactly.
Whereas we normally would have a truly healthy person does not have any of the kinds of sicknesses that are common these days.
Right. Yeah, and it's so sad because I mean, I've had some deaths in the family as well, and I don't think there's anybody really who can experience a death in the family where the loved one is under the care of the regular allopathic institution. And I don't think anyone can have that experience and not notice, you know, just the inefficiency of that system and how it runs, and just whether it's they feed the patient bad food, they don't give them the care that they need, just loading them with drugs and synthetics of all sorts, none of the things that are in any way beneficial to health. And so it's just, I feel your frustration there because it's so common to everyone, you know, everyone who's gone through this with their family. And if we only knew, I don't want to say how easy it is, because that's not the right way to put it. If we only understood the simplicity of these principles and how well nature provides for you, so long as you do the bare minimum on your part, and nature and your body and the vitality in your system, it kind of takes care of the rest. And the allopathic field, they really have not ventured anywhere near these natural understandings. And so yeah, it's, I'm sorry to hear that you had to go through that at such a young age. It really is unfortunate, and in my case too.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And my father was taken from me very early as well. In one sense, it does help me as a person, and maybe for you as well, because it gave you that drive to aspire to correct your health and your wellness. I guess it is a good thing, right? Beautiful things growing out of the chaos, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's the upside.
That's the upside. Yeah, of course.
My way. Let me put it that way. My way is, not to just turn a negative, difficult thing into a completely positive and happy thing necessarily.
Yeah.
These kinds of ways of thinking, but I would say that is very much a positive side of what happens. Maybe I'll get to see on your program, or if you haven't put it up already, by the way, more of the story that you just mentioned about your father. Your program is great, by the way. I really appreciate
thank you.
What you're doing.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You decide, if it's right or not, but often just telling people a story is a good way to connect, if nothing else.
Isn't that the truth?
One of the most successful performances I ever gave was one where I first just told a story about something that was meaningful to me in my life, and then I played a song. And it was a short performance, but because people were able to feel connected to me in a different way than just play the song.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Right. A lot of the times when you're reading a book or whatnot, some of the most memorable things that you take from the book are the stories, the personal stories that the author has to recount. When it's personal like that, it has a way of sticking with you. So I know what you mean.
When I was 24, at that point, I had been smoking. I had been a smoker for 9 years.
Oh, really?
Cigarettes and weed.
Oh, damn.
In addition to eating pretty crappy food, the standard American diet, extremely crappy food.
Yeah.
And a year later, I was able to do something I had been trying to do for years, which I later realized was largely because of what happened with my father, and that was to quit smoking cigarettes.
I see.
Quitting smoking weed, in my experience, was not a challenge at all. Cigarettes was really, really hard.
Right.
And basically, I made a list of all the reasons that I wanted to quit. It ended up being a much longer list than I thought it would be, and I kept it in my pocket. I laminated it and kept it in my pocket and looked at it often, and I pulled that off. The only more challenging addiction that I could easily point a finger at than cigarettes, there's two. There's food. Significantly more challenging.
That's, nothing
because
more.
You can't just separate yourself from whoever you were doing that with everywhere. And the other one is sexual habit.
Very, very powerful earthly urges that can be quite difficult to break free from. Or at least not break free from, but at least to relinquish the stranglehold that they have on our behaviors and our lifestyle. Obviously all things in balance, but yeah, bringing them under a degree of control can be very difficult. Food particularly, who doesn't like food, right?
Yeah, and it's not just a habit that's 10 years deep or 20 years deep, whatever. It's generally, it's a lifelong, many generations long habit.
Yeah.
You can probably relate to when you go and spend time with your family. That can be some of the most challenging of all.
Yeah.
You're spending time with your family or eating things that you grew up eating with them.
Exactly. Well, we both know altering, your eating lifestyles will change your relationship to your friends and your family, because so many of the things that we do, especially in a social setting, is revolving around food and the concept of food and food preparation, and we have all of these food rituals. So as soon as you change that, right, the nature of these relationships almost by necessity would have to concomitantly change. So my question for you is, how did these lifestyle changes that you made, how did they affect your relationships with your friends and family?
Well, first, you said how, but first I want to answer a similar question, which is how much, and that would be to an extremely large amount. Extremely large degree. And how, let's see, in society, it's one of the main ways that we are used to connecting with each other around food. And all of a sudden, you're not someone that wants to share these foods with people.
Right.
And I don't know if I would say it's the biggest challenge, but it's definitely one of the biggest challenges.
One of them.
Well, what happens is you discover all this information. The way I see information is, something that's coming at you may or may not be true for you, but once you know it for yourself through various ways of verifying things, then it becomes knowledge.
Yes.
So once you absorb that, then you're in a different place.
It changes you, and
you want to stay with them.
Yeah.
Like, they're not necessarily all people that you want to just disassociate yourself from.
Right.
They're people you care about.
Exactly.
As you said, there's not much of a community yet of people that have even heard of something like a fruit diet.
Oh, yeah. Some people don't even know it exists. Yeah. But that it happens to be one of your most natural states.
In my work, I think I had a much easier time, with my work life before all that.
I see. Yeah.
Because you're not going out and sharing these bonding experiences with people.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure out some other way to bond.
Yeah.
Or not.
Or not, right.
So figure out another way to live.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well in my experience. It's all of the things that were just normal that you would customarily do. They either are no longer a part of your life, or you just have to find other ways to do the same thing, right? So if it's meeting up with people for the first time, whether it's just catching up, whether it's, whatever social setting, you have to find ways to still blend in, right? But obviously there's no chance of that you will blend in perfectly. As a quick example, for me, let's take going to a wedding. For me, going to a wedding, it's fine. I go to a wedding just like anyone else. But if I'm going to be eating, I'm bringing, a Tupperware container full of whatever it is, fruit, bananas or something. And so it's very strange at a wedding, to be dressed up in your nice tuxedo, everyone's looking great. The standard tradition is just to wait for all the beautifully decorated food to come on plates that's got all these garnishes and it looks like $1 million. And you pull out a Tupperware full of just, mangoes. So it's weird for everyone around you, but like you said before, it wasn't the most difficult transition because your truth becomes more important than the errors of culture. So
but people don't understand that.
Yeah.
To them, you're just doing something unusual.
Yeah, it's just weird. But it is possible. It changes things, it's different, but it's not that you necessarily must become a hermit or divorce yourself from all things social. It's just that it changes a couple of things.
There's different approaches, I think, and one of the empowering things, I think some of the empowering information that I think is good to get out there to those that are on this kind of wavelength is just a concise list of what some of these different approaches are that are working for different people. Some people it seems to work kind of like what you described. You bring your own food places, and
right.
I've heard of some people will call ahead at different restaurants and say, "Listen, I'm coming tomorrow with a group of people, and I have a special diet." Often people are wary of anyone asking for a special diet because they're used to something that's very difficult, like what a person that identifies as a vegan might often request. Whereas fruit diet generally pretty easy. It's still out of the ordinary. They'll cut up some fruit, so don't even hand me an apple. Tomato, whatever.
It's just funny, the idea of calling into a restaurant and saying, can you just serve me apples? They'd probably be like, who is this guy? Why are you coming here? Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, but then the next time someone does it, maybe we'll feel a little easier about it.
Yeah, it's familiar now.
It's not like you're walking in barefoot or something.
Right.
Or walking in barefoot and then also doing that. Whoa, now you really offended them.
No, exactly, yeah.
Some people, even if you bring your own food, you're still going to feel some temptation. So for some people it works to just not have your social connections be around food at all. Other ways of connecting with people. Me, I play music. I do music and teach music as a profession. So that gives me some social connection. Yeah. So anyway, that's another approach.
As much as these social pressures do exist, and sometimes they can be challenging depending on where you are at your transition, I think the most important thing to remember is that they're so important to make in your life that it is worth compromising the normalcy of, these cultural practices. It's worth editing and modifying those for the benefits that this type of lifestyle will bring not only you, but to those people that are in your circle to influence, people that see what you're doing. And then they're going to ask you questions, and then hopefully you can inspire someone else to do something. So it's more important than just simply allowing culture to, take hold of your life and just doing what everyone does because that's what's normal. It's important to, to be able to know the benefits of editing these behaviors.
It can be very important to not come across as like you're putting yourself above another person.
Yes, that I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes.
There's so many people that come from so many different cultures,
right?
And something that I think is important to consider. If you're on a journey, you might fall down sometimes. Often you'll get right back up and keep going, or maybe you'll need to rest for a while and heal, and then get back up and keep going.
Right.
It's been 12 years I've been on the Fruitarian path, and pretty much 16 years since the moment that I was telling you and your listeners about the death of my father and everything.
Right.
You know, it's a journey.
Yeah. It's a process. Yeah, and it's really good that you mentioned that, actually, because it's something that I haven't spoken about. But whenever I'm in public and people ask me about my diet and the way I eat, I feel the worst time to be asking me is when it's a dinner setting where there's lots of people at the table and then someone asks, oh, why fruit only? It's hard for me to answer because in so answering, it would be very difficult not to offend people at the table, right? It's hard to get into the benefits of just fruit only without getting into why you shouldn't eat everything else, right? That's always a very tough question because it might mistakenly be construed by people that I'm speaking to that I feel that I'm better or superior, and that's not the case, right, at all. So sometimes it can be tough answering those questions without coming across that way, or without offending people that are eating bad food at the table. So that's a big challenge as well.
Yeah.
Deliver the message as lovingly as possible. That's all you can do. And how it's interpreted, that's everyone else's battle to deal with, I always say.
Sometimes I want to give people more of an answer than other times. And sometimes I want to give different people different types of answers.
Yes.
Based on what I think would be best for them.
Exactly. That's totally right. Yeah, you gauge it based on the person.
Yeah, like if I think a person is not even really asking because they're interested in what I have to say, and they're more asking because they want to challenge what I have to say, then I might not give much of an answer. I don't think they're really listening. I might give just enough of an answer. It's just how I like to eat.
Yeah.
Or it's a healthy way of eating.
Yeah, the simple answer. I've experienced, very similar things in my life, so it's interesting to hear you say, recount the same things. So, yeah. Now, I didn't want to ask you, you had talked when we spoke privately about barefooting, and it's something that I've never really brought up on my channel. What can you tell us about barefooting, what it is, and why it would be something of interest for anyone that's on a health and wellness lifestyle regime?
Absolutely. Okay, I'll try to be brief about something that is a very big subject.
Understandably.
I've been pretty intensely looking into various subjects around how to be healthy and how to not ever have to go into the, go see an allopathic doctor and that sort of thing. And I think one of the most significant things I found actually is barefooting. Something that is at least as challenging as eating a fruit diet. In a lot of ways more challenging because it's visible. When you walk down the street, people don't necessarily know that you eat a fruit diet.
Right.
You're walking down the street barefoot, people see that. And depending where you live, in New York City, people stare at you. People ask you to leave from their establishment. They're not always so nice about it.
Because you're unsanitary.
It's actually more sanitary, believe it or not.
I believe it, yeah.
Shoes create a closed, moist environment.
Yeah.
Breeds bacteria and causes things like athlete's foot. You don't get that as a barefooter.
Yeah, exactly.
My sister lent me a book a couple years ago, Born to Run. It's actually a well-known bestseller.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah, I haven't read it. I know of the book, though, yes.
Yeah, it's a great book. Highly recommend it.
Okay.
I learned in that book about an amazing tribe of people in Mexico called the Tarahumara are able to run these distances that I didn't know were humanly possible, hundreds of miles at a time. Yeah. Like all of them. And I was pretty inspired by that. Men, the women, children, they all do that. And they do it for fun. They don't do it from what I understand, they play games and it's cultural fun things that they've been doing forever. And the book got into a lot of the history of shoes and how human beings have a very short history of wearing shoes, and throughout our much longer history on this planet, we've been walking barefoot. Right. And we have very advanced feet, technology in our feet, such as the arch, that no other animal has, which gives us special abilities. The arch is a shock absorber, very advanced shock absorber, which is why we can run distances that no other animal can run. It's actually one of the human species' main advantages on this planet that has given us our position that we have in the world right now. People think about our opposable thumbs and our intelligence, but our arched feet are actually a big one as well.
Interesting.
When you walk barefoot, you spare yourself a lot of major health problems that are caused cumulatively by shoes. The earlier in life you start doing it, the better. Some of those issues are deformed foot in numerous ways. Shoes generally press the toes towards the center of the foot, whereas a healthy foot that has never worn shoes has blade toes where your big toe actually comes out the side, similar to the thumb on your hand, and that gives us much better balance. Also, if the shoes are raising the heel, then that throws our entire posture of the body off. We have to stand in a way that is unnatural in order to avoid falling over.
Right.
You have no choice.
So basically, high heels would be the single worst postural invention that mankind has ever laid upon us, right? Like, that's just something that we should never be doing, I would assume.
I don't know if they're true, but I've heard stories that high heels were originally created in order to put women at a disadvantage. I'm not sure. There's a lot of stories going around, hard to verify things, but if you even write in that book, Born to Run, it talks about how the Nike Corporation knows a lot about these negative issues of shoes, and as they were pushing their running, jogging shoes, they knew about it. People were pointing out to them, like, you're causing major issues here, but they were too motivated by money to let that stop them.
Of course.
Anyway, that's some of it.
And
that's some of it, and it feels really good.
Yeah.
When you don't wear a cover on your feet. You connect with the earth. The energy goes in and out of your feet and in and out of your head in a way that doesn't happen with shoes.
Of course, yeah. The grounding aspect. There's a whole other conversation. You can go into that for hours. But just some of the things that happen when you physically touch the earth and you allow that earth resonance to be in contact with you. Yeah, that's another area entirely. And then of course the structural and mechanical aspects that you're talking about. These are things that people haven't really considered. When you remove the shoes from your feet, it forces you to, if you're sprinting, to run properly. Whereas if you throw on these shoes, you've got this huge extra layer of rubber padding that would allow you to slam your heel against the ground or concrete or whatnot, developing a bad habit. But if you take off your shoes, your heel is never meant to slam against the ground like that. It's only when you remove the shoe that you realize, oh, I can't run like I run with shoes, and you would be forced to use your instep and use your calf as a big shock absorber, and you would never run on your heels. And that was something that I found was really interesting, and I implemented that to all my exercising and my running, many years ago. And I think if people paid attention to that, they would find that sprinting or jogging or running doesn't have the quote unquote knee damage or wear and tear on your body that it usually does when we rely on shoes, and thus compromising your ability to run properly.
You learn to run in a sensible way. Yeah, you don't have a cushion that is tricking the body into thinking that it can do these kinds of things.
Yes, tricking the body, yes.
I've simultaneously gotten into running and barefooting. After reading that book, I started wearing the more healthy type sandals, similar to the ones that the Tires of Tomorrow wear when they're running. And then I wore those for 8 months, and then I just decided to go total foot about a year ago. But that's also extremely challenging socially. Yeah. And then it's all on top of the fruit stuff that we were just talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And within the last 2 weeks, I've started wearing a type of shoe called bottomless shoes.
Yeah.
And they basically don't cover the bottom of your foot.
Yeah.
They provide a bit of camouflage and all. They still get some looks, but a lot less hassle than actually being barefoot.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to check that out. That's something that I would be very curious to take a look at. Maybe I'll throw some images up.
Yeah, of course. I can...
Thank you so much for all of that. That's really helpful. And one of the last things that I wanted to ask you, 2 things. Just very, very, very briefly, in a nutshell, since you made all of these changes, right? Fruit eating, whole food eating. We didn't get into it too much, but I know you do fasting and cleansing. Very, very briefly, some of the changes that you've noticed. Let's just say physically, but either mentally as well. So just a couple of benefits that you noticed over time.
Huge changes. I have infinitely more energy. Through the barefooting. I haven't been pushing much distance yet, but so far I can run 8 miles at a time.
Amazing.
and that's through the city barefoot. I can walk indefinitely without getting pain in my feet.
Awesome.
All morning, day, and night, as long as I want. I didn't know that was possible. One of my main goals was to be able to think clearly, something I couldn't do very well at all in my early 20s. And that is cumulatively happening through the years more and more. It's great. And I can think the most clearly by far when I'm on a dry fast.
Right.
All the energy moves from digestion towards whatever else you want to put it towards. Very, very peaceful. You know, you've dry fasted longer than I have. Didn't you do like 11 days?
I've done 2 weeks on water. I've done 1 week on dry, 1 week dry fast, and everything in between. And I vary almost all the time. I'm doing 2 to 3 days here, 3-4 days there. Mostly dry fasting now, but I do liquids as well from time to time. But so I've noticed the very same things. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. The longest one I've ever done personally is 4 days. Not that long to people that are into dry fasting, but it's pretty long to someone that thinks that believes that story that if you don't drink water for 3 days you'll die.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely not true. Yeah. Anyone that's looking into doing this sort of thing should educate themselves first, and you can hurt yourself also if you don't know what you're doing. Anyway, to get back to your question, I feel like I'm just coming back to life more and more.
Oh wow, that's an interesting way to phrase it. Yeah, that really kind of encapsulates it. You know, coming back to life. How many people can make a couple dietary changes and then comfortably state changes in that concise way? So I think that really helps to give people an idea of the type of constitutional change that overcomes the body and the mind when you incorporate these changes into your life. So yeah, that's fantastic, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out and spending this time with me. I haven't had anyone else on the show yet, and so it's nice to show the audience that there are other people besides me, thousands, hundreds of other people besides me that are doing these same things. So Bret, yeah.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And in closing, any advice, soundbite that you would give to anyone who is interested in making these changes and is just new to this?
No one can tell you better than yourself, generally speaking, what you should do. You're your own best doctor. Yeah. Myself included. If anyone gives you information, then take it, consider it, if it's true for you. Yeah. And then you can move forward from there. Right. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not really into giving advice. I try to just support people the best I can, but unless it's an absolute emergency, I don't do the advice thing. Right. Love yourself. Be nice to yourself. You're the one person that is always going to be there for you. Yeah. Love is always the answer. It's the universal constant. It's the one energy that really supports all manifestation in the universe. And when you apply that to yourself and how you deal with others, you really can't go wrong. And like you said, be open to changes. Don't be too closed off, and then see what works for you. And then you apply that, and hopefully you come across with something beneficial. One step at a time. Yeah. Excellent. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much also for having me on your program. It's very kind of you. Pleasure is all mine, my friend. Thank you for giving me your time. And I don't want to keep you too long, but yeah, Mr. Bret Cohen, thank you again in droves. And happy journeys, happy health, and we'll talk again soon, my friend. Thank you so much, Bret Cohen. I really hope you guys got something out of that interview today. If you'd like a chance to speak and share your particular story on your health and wellness journey, if you have recovered from disease or a particular condition using natural methods, using fasting, or any of the things that we talk about on this channel, I'd love to hear from you. So I think it's important that I share the stories of people who don't usually get to be interviewed about this sort of thing. So don't be shy. If you feel like you've got an important story that you wish to share publicly, then please let me know, and I'd be happy to have you on the show. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. That's it for now. I'll see you next time on the Freemelon Society.